Dr. Rachel Foster had examined thousands of historical photographs during her decade at the Philadelphia Museum of Medical History, but this portrait immediately caught her attention. Donated from a local estate, the image showed a young boy, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, seated in a formal studio setting typical of 1907. He wore a sailor suit, fashionable for boys of that era, his dark hair neatly combed. But unlike the stern, composed expressions common in photographs from that period, this child looked deeply uncomfortable. His small hands gripped the chair arms with visible tension. His mouth set in a tight line suggesting pain or distress. The documentation identified him as Samuel, son of Dr. Howard Pierce, Philadelphia, April 1907. A handwritten note on the backing read, "Taken 3 weeks before his passing. May God forgive us." Rachel's medical background made her scrutinize the image carefully. Something about the boy's appearance suggested serious illness. A pallor to his skin, a gauntness to his features beyond typical long exposure effects. She decided to scan the photograph at high resolution for the museum's digital archive. When the magnified image appeared on her screen, Rachel leaned forward, breath-catching. She zoomed on the boy's face, focusing on his eyes. What she saw made her immediately call Dr. Michael Chen, the museum's forensic pathology consultant. "Michael, I need you to look at something," she said. "I'm sending you a scan. Focus on the eyes." Silence followed as Michael examined the image. Then, "Rachel, where did you get this?" "Estate donation. 1907 Y." The sclera, the whites of his eyes, showed distinct yellow tinge. The pupils are constricted to pinpoints despite bright lighting. The conjunctiva shows irritation. "Rachel, this child shows classic signs of toxic exposure, possibly poisoning." Rachel and Michael spent the afternoon examining every detail with forensic precision. Beyond the yellowed sclera and constricted pupils, they identified more concerning signs. The boy's lips had a bluish tint suggesting cyanosis. His fingernails showed unusual ridging and discoloration, and his posture suggested muscular weakness and tremor. "The note said he died 3 weeks after this photograph," Rachel said. "We need his death certificate and medical records." They searched Philadelphia's Department of Records, finding Samuel Pierce's certificate dated May 8, 1907. Cause of death: acute gastric distress and organ failure. The attending physician: Dr. Howard Pierce, the boy's own father. Michael frowned. Acute gastric distress was a catch-all diagnosis. Could mean anything from food poisoning to deliberate poisoning, and his father signing the death certificate rather than calling another physician is suspicious. Rachel searched medical directories from that period. Howard Pierce graduated from the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine in 1893, established a successful practice treating Philadelphia's wealthy families, lived on Rittenhouse Square. He specialized in nervous disorders and chronic complaints, prescribing various tonics and patent medicines. Many of those medicines contained dangerous substances: arsenic, mercury, strychnine, laudanum, toxins considered therapeutic in small doses but deadly when accumulated. She found Dr. Pierce's practice records archived at the College of Physicians of Philadelphia. After obtaining access, Rachel and Michael spent 2 days reviewing his patient files and prescription records from 1906-1907. What they discovered was deeply disturbing. Dr. Pierce had prescribed an unusual tonic called Pierce's Vigor Restorative to dozens of patients, including his son Samuel. The formula contained arsenic trioxide for vitality, mercury compounds for digestion, and strychnine for nervous strength. Rachel stared at the prescription. He was poisoning them. He was poisoning his own son. Michael contacted Dr. Janet Morrison, a toxicology expert at the University of Pennsylvania, to analyze Dr. Pierce's formula. She reviewed the composition with growing alarm during their meeting at the museum. "This combination is extraordinarily dangerous," Dr. Morrison explained. "Arsenic trioxide accumulates in the body, causing gradual organ damage. Mercury compounds cause neurological deterioration and kidney failure. Strychnine causes muscle spasms, convulsions, and respiratory distress. Administered together over time, these substances would cause exactly the symptoms we see in that photograph: jaundiced eyes from liver damage, constricted pupils from strychnine toxicity, cyanosis from respiratory compromise. But why would a physician poison his own son?" Rachel asked. Dr. Morrison pulled up historical medical journals on her tablet. This era was rife with what we'd now call medical malpractice. Physicians often experimented with dangerous compounds, believing small amounts of poison could be therapeutic. There was a philosophy called heroic medicine, the idea that aggressive treatments with toxic substances proved the physician's skill. Many doctors tested their concoctions on family members first. Michael examined the photograph again, enhancing the background. Look at the shelf behind the boy. Those aren't decorative bottles. He zoomed further. I can make out partial text. Pierce's, restorative. Daily dose. Rachel felt a chill. He brought his medicine bottles to the photo session? Maybe he was documenting his treatment, Michael said grimly. Maybe this photograph was meant as a medical record, proof of his son's condition before the cure he expected. Rachel searched Dr. Pierce's records again, finding a leather-bound journal dated January 1906 through April 1907, a detailed log of Samuel's therapeutic regimen. The entries documented clear poisoning symptoms that Pierce interpreted as drawing out illness. Rachel needed to understand the family dynamics. Why hadn't Samuel's mother intervened? She discovered her name was Catherine Pierce. Born Catherine Walsh in 1875. Catherine died in 1909, just 2 years after her son at age 34. Through genealogical records, Rachel located Catherine's descendants and contacted them. A great-granddaughter named Ellen Walsh agreed to meet, bringing a box of family papers, including Catherine's personal diary. I've never read it carefully, Ellen admitted. It's heartbreaking. The family always said she died of grief. Rachel opened the fragile diary. Entries began in 1905 when Samuel was healthy, but by early 1906, the tone changed dramatically. January 15, 1906. Howard has begun treating Samuel with his new tonic. He insists it will strengthen the boy's constitution. Samuel dislikes the taste terribly and cries when made to take it. But Howard says this proves it is working. The entries continued, documenting Samuel's decline. March 1906. Samuel has become so thin. He can barely keep food down and complains of stomach pain. Howard says this is the medicine cleansing his system and has increased the dosage. I begged him to stop, but he grew angry. July 1906. Samuel's eyes have taken on a yellow cast. I consulted another physician in secret, Dr. Martin at Pennsylvania Hospital. He examined Samuel and said the boy appears to be suffering from toxic exposure. When I told Howard, he flew into a rage and forbade me from seeing Dr. Martin again. December 1906. My son is dying. Howard refuses to see what his medicine is doing. Samuel can barely walk. His hands shake constantly. I tried to stop giving him the tonic, but Howard discovered this and now administers it himself, forcing Samuel to swallow every drop. Catherine's diary entry for April 17, 1907, the photograph's date, provided devastating context. Howard insisted we take Samuel to the photographer today. He wants to document Samuel's condition before the final phase of treatment that he says will cure him completely. I begged him not to move Samuel. The boy is so weak he can barely sit upright. But Howard would not listen. He brought several bottles of his tonic to show the photographer, speaking proudly about his medical innovation. The photographer, Mr. Garrett, looked disturbed by Samuel's appearance and suggested we postpone. Howard became agitated and insisted. Samuel sat in that chair, trembling and in pain, while Howard positioned the medicine bottles in the background. Our son's eyes, once bright and full of life, are now yellow and hollow. He looked at me with such pleading during the photograph. I failed him. I should have taken him away months ago, but I had nowhere to go, no means to support us, and no legal right to remove my own child from his father's custody. Mr. Garrett asked if Samuel was ill. Howard replied that his son was undergoing advanced therapeutic treatment and would soon be completely healthy. The photographer said nothing more, but I saw pity and horror in his eyes. Catherine's next entry, April 20th, 1907. Howard has begun the intensive phase of treatment, triple doses of his tonic, administered 4 times daily. Samuel screams when he sees his father approaching with the medicine. I can do nothing but hold my dying son and whisper apologies he is too delirious to understand. The entries ended May 8th, 1907. Samuel died this morning at 6:15. Howard stood over his body and said the treatment almost worked. My husband believes his own delusions. He killed our son and calls it medicine. I will never forgive him. I will never forgive myself. Rachel closed the diary with shaking hands. Ellen sat across from her, tears streaming down her face. I never knew. Ellen whispered. The family always said Samuel died of natural illness. Michael had been reviewing Catherine's death certificate on his laptop. Catherine Pierce died in August 1909. Cause of death: acute gastric distress and organ failure. The attending physician was Dr. Howard Pierce. The room fell silent. Finally, Rachel spoke. He poisoned his wife too. They returned to Dr. Pierce's patient records with new urgency. If he had poisoned his son and possibly his wife, how many other patients had suffered from his toxic treatments? They compiled a list of every patient prescribed Pierce's Vigor Restorative between 1905 and 1910. The list contained 43 names. Cross-referencing with death certificates, they made a horrifying discovery. 17 patients had died within 2 years of beginning treatment, all with similar causes listed: gastric distress, organ failure, unexplained decline. Most victims were women and children, already vulnerable populations in early 20th century medicine. Their families, trusting a respected physician from a prestigious address, had no reason to suspect the treatment itself was killing them. Michael contacted the Philadelphia Police Department's cold case unit. Detective James Rodriguez agreed to review their findings. This is unlike any cold case I've handled, he admitted. The perpetrator has been dead for decades, but if we can prove what he did, we can at least give the victims' families answers. Rachel located the photographer, Thomas Garrett, whose studio had been on Walnut Street. His business records were archived at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. She found his appointment book from April 1907 and, more importantly, a personal journal he'd kept. Thomas Garrett's entry for April 17, 1907, corroborated Catherine's diary. The Pierce family came today. The most disturbing session I've ever conducted. The boy, Samuel, appeared desperately ill, emaciated, trembling, with yellowed eyes that spoke of serious disease. The father, Dr. Pierce, seemed oblivious to his son's suffering, speaking enthusiastically about his medical treatments. He actually brought bottles of medicine to include in the photograph, as if documenting a medical triumph rather than a tragedy. The mother stood apart, silent and pale, her eyes never leaving her son. I've photographed grief before, but never alongside such aggressive denial. When I positioned Samuel in the chair, the boy could barely hold himself upright. I suggested postponing, but Dr. Pierce insisted. The child's eyes met mine once during the exposure, 20 seconds that felt like hours, and I saw suffering that no child should endure. After they left, I told my assistant I feared we'd just photographed a dying boy and his father was to blame. But what could I do? Dr. Pierce is a respected physician. Who would believe a photographer's suspicions? Rachel discovered that Garrett had tried to act on his concerns. In the Historical Society archives, she found correspondence between Garrett and Dr. Samuel Martin, the physician Catherine had secretly consulted. Garrett's letter, dated April 25, 1907, described the photograph session. Dr. Martin's response revealed a devastating truth. Mr. Garrett, I share your concerns about young Samuel Pierce. His mother brought him to me last year, and I immediately recognized signs of chronic poisoning. I advised Mrs. Pierce to remove the child from his father's care, but she explained she had no legal ability to do so. Under Pennsylvania law, fathers have absolute custody, and wives have no legal standing to contradict their husband's medical decisions. Dr. Martin's letter continued. I attempted to report my concerns to the Philadelphia County Medical Society, but Dr. Pierce is a member in good standing with influential connections. The society conducted a brief inquiry and concluded that Dr. Pierce's treatments, while unorthodox, fell within accepted medical practice of the era. I was warned that pursuing the matter further could be considered professional interference and damage my own reputation. The boy is likely beyond saving now. I am ashamed of my profession's unwillingness to protect vulnerable patients from dangerous practitioners, even when those practitioners are the patient's own fathers. Samuel died less than 2 weeks after Dr. Martin wrote that letter. Michael found more evidence of medical community complicity. Multiple physicians had expressed private concerns about Dr. Pierce's methods in letters and journal entries, but none had taken public action. The medical establishment protected its own. Rachel expanded the investigation to Dr. Pierce's earlier career, finding his medical school thesis from 1893, The Therapeutic Applications of Arsenical Compounds in Treating Chronic Conditions. His thesis advisor's notes, preserved in university archives, included a cautionary comment. Mr. Pierce shows exceptional enthusiasm for heroic treatments, but insufficient regard for patient safety. His confidence in toxic substances exceeds his understanding of their dangers. Recommend close supervision during clinical training. That supervision apparently never materialized. Pierce established his independent practice immediately after graduation, and with no regulatory oversight of physicians prescribing practices in that era, he was free to experiment on patients with impunity. Rachel found records showing Dr. Pierce continued practicing until 1923, nearly 2 decades after Samuel's death. How many more victims had there been? The death certificates and patient records suggested at least a dozen more suspicious deaths linked to his treatments. The pattern was clear. Dr. Pierce selected vulnerable patients, children, elderly individuals, women with chronic complaints, and prescribed his toxic tonic for extended periods, documenting their decline as evidence of his treatment working. As Rachel prepared to close her investigation, she made one final discovery. Among Catherine's papers, Ellen found a sealed envelope marked, "To be opened only after my death." Inside was a letter dated July 1909. To whoever reads this, I write this in sound mind and full knowledge of what I am about to do. My husband, Dr. Howard Pierce, murdered our son Samuel through his toxic treatments. He refuses to acknowledge what he did and continues to prescribe his poisonous tonic to other patients. At least 3 more children have died under his care since Samuel's death. I reported him to the medical society, the police, and anyone who would listen. No one would act. A wife's testimony against her husband is worthless in law. I have no evidence that courts would accept. I am dying now from the same poison that killed Samuel. But this time the poisoning is not at my husband's hand, it is at my own. I have been taking his tonic in large doses for the past month. When I die, my body will contain undeniable evidence of arsenic, mercury, and strychnine poisoning. I have arranged for my body to be examined by Dr. Martin at Pennsylvania Hospital before my husband can claim it. Dr. Martin has agreed to conduct a thorough autopsy and preserve tissue samples. He will document the toxic compounds in my organs. I pray that my death will finally force the medical community and the law to acknowledge what Dr. Howard Pierce has done. If my sacrifice can save even one child from my son's fate, it will have meaning. I failed to protect Samuel while he lived. Perhaps I can protect other children through my death. Forgive me, my son. Your loving mother, Catherine Pierce. Rachel immediately searched for Dr. Martin's autopsy report and found it, along with preserved tissue samples kept in the hospital's pathology collection for 115 years. Modern toxicology analysis of Catherine's preserved tissue samples confirmed her letter. Her tissues contained lethal levels of arsenic, mercury, and strychnine at concentrations far too high to be accidental. Dr. Martin's original autopsy report had been suppressed, but he had kept his own copy and the samples. Rachel organized an exhibition at the Philadelphia Museum of Medical History titled The Price of Truth, Catherine and Samuel Pierce, 1907-1909. The exhibition presented the complete story: Samuel's photograph showing his poisoned eyes, Catherine's diary, Dr. Martin's suppressed autopsy, and evidence of Dr. Pierce's other victims. The exhibition drew thousands of visitors. Medical schools incorporated the case into ethics training. Patient advocacy groups cited Catherine's story when arguing for stronger protections for vulnerable patients. The University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine issued a formal statement expressing remorse that neither the school nor the medical community had intervened. They announced a scholarship in Samuel Pierce's name for students pursuing medical ethics and patient safety research. Ellen Walsh worked with Rachel to locate descendants of Dr. Pierce's other victims. They organized a memorial service at Laurel Hill Cemetery, where Samuel and several other victims were buried. Over 100 people attended, descendants who finally understood how their ancestors truly died. A memorial marker was placed near Samuel's grave. In memory of Samuel Pierce, 1898-1907, and all victims of Dr. Howard Pierce's medical experimentation. Their suffering was real. Their deaths were preventable. Their stories will not be forgotten. Rachel stood in the exhibition hall, watching visitors examine the enlarged photograph of Samuel's eyes. The yellowed sclera, the constricted pupils, the unmistakable signs of poisoning that had gone unrecognized in 1907, but were now impossible to ignore. The evidence of harm, once created, can never be completely erased. Samuel's eyes would continue to teach, warn, and remind future generations to look closely, question authority, and protect the vulnerable.